Today, we're going to talk about how to view existing roles, create your own custom roles, and delete roles. In Aspen, roles are a way to assign a specific group of permissions to a user. So if you only want a staff member to publish lists to the catalog, you can create a role for that. Then if you want a different staff member to have access to all features related to your site's theme and promotional tools, you can create a role for that as well. These roles make it so that any given user will only see the settings they should have access to and nothing more. To make this happen, Aspen allows you full control of your library's roles, and their permissions are very granular, so you can create whatever roles you need for specific purposes. In order to manage permissions in Aspen, your account will need at least one role assigned to it with the Administer Permissions permission. To view and manage roles, start in Aspen Administration and search the settings up at the top for permissions. And it will come right up under System Administration. On the permission screen, you'll be able to see what roles are available by clicking the drop-down next to Role to Edit. The roles you'll see here in your Aspen instance might differ from what you see on my screen. Older installations of Aspen may have a really large list of out-of-the-box default roles to choose from. Newer installations may have just a few basic roles to get you started. You might also see other roles if someone at your library has created custom roles for your Aspen instance at some point. To see what an existing role can do, select the name from the drop-down. I selected the role Cover Images, so if I scroll here, I can see that the Cataloging and e-content section is popped open with a few relevant permissions checked, such as Upload Covers. If I continue to scroll down, all the other sections are closed, meaning that there are no permissions assigned to this role from these other sections. In contrast, if I go back up and select the role opacAdmin, you can see that almost every section has permissions selected. opacAdmin in particular is a very important role in Aspen. This is a role that allows you to do basically anything in Aspen, so if a user has this role assigned to them, they will have full administrative access to pretty much all the Aspen settings. So needless to say, opacAdmin is a role that should be reserved only for those who really need to access all of Aspen settings and should not be assigned to just anyone. Additionally, if a user has the opacAdmin role, they probably don't need any other role assigned to them. The only exception might be the permission to administer user and permissions, which could be split out into their own separate user admin role. It's also recommended to not delete the opacAdmin role, and here's why. When new settings or features are added to Aspen, any related permissions are automatically added to the opacAdmin role upon each new Aspen release. This means that when new functionality comes out, anyone who has the opacAdmin role will automatically be able to access the related settings. If opacAdmin no longer exists and you've replaced it with a similar role for your full administrators, that's okay, but you'll just need to manually update the permissions for the role in order to access new settings. To create a new role, click the Create New Role button. Enter in the name of the role, and then enter in a description so you and others can know what the role does. If you want to copy permissions from an existing role, select that role in the drop-down here. When you're ready, click Create Role. This will bring up the page with that role already selected. So if you didn't copy any permissions over, the next step will be to add permissions. Since this is a library marketing role, I might want to add permissions for things like browse categories, placards, and spotlights. So I can actually search within the permissions. If I want to see what permissions are related to browse categories, I can type that in, and here I'll be able to make my selections. Note that there's a distinction with some of these permissions. Sometimes you'll see administer all of something or administer library of something. The difference here is really more relevant to consortia who have their own Aspen catalogs for all their member libraries. If you just are one library system or one library, you only have one catalog, you can go ahead and just select the all version of the permission. In consortia, where each member library may have their own catalog and own set of settings to manage, you would probably want to select administer library of that setting if you only wanted them to access the settings relevant to their instance of Aspen. So I'll go ahead and check off administer all browse categories, and I can finish selecting my other choices for this marketing role. Once the permissions are all set, scroll to the bottom and save. Now your role is ready to assign to an admin user. If you want to edit any other existing role, just select that role from the drop-down. Then you'll be able to check new permissions or uncheck any that you no longer want this role to have. And whenever you're finished, scroll to the bottom of the screen and save your changes. Keep in mind that you can't currently edit the name or the description of an existing role. So if you want to change the title of a role or the description, you can copy the permissions to a new role, then delete the old one, or just delete the role you no longer want and start over fresh. If you no longer need a role, select it from the Role to Edit dropdown, then click the Delete button. Note that Aspen won't let you delete the role if it's currently assigned to any users. If that's the case, you'll need to unassign that role from those users before you can delete the role. One of the things that's really helpful when you're trying to find who has a specific role is to come to the administrator's screen under the same section in System Administration. Then use these filters at the top of the columns to narrow down so you can easily find who has any given role assigned to them. Another thing to know about roles is that they stack upon each other. This is why it's a good idea to not have too many roles to choose from and not assign a user too many roles, and make sure that your roles are clearly defined. Otherwise, you might be allowing a user more access in Aspen than you'd intended. For example, this user is assigned the role Location Masquerader, which allows the users to masquerade only as users of their home location. If you also assign them the Masquerader role, that would allow them to masquerade as any user regardless of their home location. By selecting both of these roles, you'd essentially be overriding the restrictions of the Location Masquerader role with the broader access of the Masquerader role. In addition to assigning roles to individual admin users, you have the ability to assign roles by patron type or patron category as well. This isn't very commonly used, and if it is used, it's typically to allow staff to use something like Masquerade mode. To assign a role by patron type, head to Primary Configuration within Aspen Admin, and then click Patron Types. So let's say that I want anyone signing in with an account that has the libstaff patron category to be able to do something in Aspen. I'll click into this patron type to edit it. Then, under Assigned Role, select the role that you want to assign to this patron category. Then, save your changes. Now anyone who signs in with a libstaff account will have access to the permissions assigned to that role.